The story follows the kingdom's strongest female knight, known for defeating her opponents in a single battle. She has always been regarded as unbeatable, but rumors begin to spread after news breaks that she has left the order. At the Astrum Knight's headquarters, the knight stands silently as her assistant informs the protagonist, Carlo, that she has been temporarily suspended from the order. With nowhere else for her to stay, a senior officer requests Carlo to take her in. They believe that under his care he might be able to help her rediscover a sense of normal life, and perhaps even teach her what happiness means. Now both of them enter Carlo's grandfather's luxurious palace. When Carlo mentions that he now lives there alone, she looks slightly annoyed. Standing in front of a room, he says he has prepared it, though he is unfamiliar with this kind of work. When he opens the door to a luxurious, cute, aesthetic room, she is visibly impressed. She angrily grabs a stuffed toy, making Carlo smile awkwardly, since his sister had advised him to use them, though it doesn't seem like a good idea anymore. He asks if she needs anything else, but with a serious expression, she simply refuses. Having a place to sleep is important to her, and anything beyond that seems unnecessary. A year passes. Carlo opens the door and is shocked to see Alba hugging a pile of stuffed toys. He asks in surprise if she bought more, but without answering, she angrily shouts at him to knock first. Carlo is confused because he did knock, but seeing her like this makes him feel relieved, realizing she is settling in well. She then squeezes her favorite stuffed toy tightly. Later, Carlo is going about his business when he senses Alba approaching and greets her as she returns. However, he is shocked to see her wearing her armor, which she coldly calls her casual look. Realizing she has no other clothing, he stands and offers to go shopping with her for clothes, but she firmly refuses. Then she angrily pushes her hair back from her face. Noticing this, Carlo steps closer and instinctively offers to tie her hair if it is bothering her. But he is startled when she suddenly turns around, pulls his hand away, and tells him not to touch her before walking off. Watching her leave, he feels guilty, realizing he acted out of habit from doing similar things for his sister. Meanwhile, she stops at a distance, quietly shows her gratitude, but asks him not to fuss over her, then quickly dashes away. This leaves him gloomy, wondering if she hates him and confused about whether living together is actually helping. Another year passes. Carlo is working on documents when she suddenly calls him and sits next to him, surprising him. Grabbing him by the collar, she demands that he style her hair for a change. He agrees, and as he does her hair, he feels relaxed, realizing that living together is improving things, especially since she looks genuinely happy with her hairstyle. Carlo recalls how, a year earlier, she once came home with a facial injury, casually saying she had been in a fight and was a bit rusty. Worried, he suggested she get treatment, but she refused, saying it would heal on its own. When he insisted again, she angrily snapped at him, telling him she was going to take a bath and not to disturb her. Now, however, he feels happy as they stand in the kitchen together. He asks her to chop the vegetables. She holds the knife like a sword, just like a knight, which surprises him since she rarely helps with cooking. But as she begins cutting, she accidentally cuts her finger. She immediately pulls her hand back and orders him to heal it. Though nervous, he takes her hand and bandages it. Afterwards, she sits in front of the meal, staring at her finger. A few days later, Carlo is startled when she angrily calls out from behind, asking where he is going. Turning around, he nervously explains that he is attending a work ball. She gives him a sharp look and asks if other women will be there. He replies that it is a work event and he is not really looking forward to it either. Seeing her suddenly turn away and leave, he gets an idea and asks her to come with him, saying she would look good in a dress, but she refuses. As he calmly says he will go alone, she turns back, grabs his shirt, and pulls him closer. With a cold expression, she warns him not to let his eyes wander. Carlo quickly reassures her, gently holding her hands and promising he will return soon. In the past, Carlo was shocked when he saw Alba practicing her swordsmanship. In response to his surprise, she calmly explained that it was part of her morning training, which shocked him even more since it was nearly 3 a.m. When he suggested that she get proper sleep since she was no longer a knight, she firmly refused, insisting that she would always remain strong. Carlo was left worried, unsure of how he could ever get her to truly rest. At present, it is almost 8 a.m., while she is still deeply sleeping, holding her stuffed toys all around her. Then, catching a good smell, she lazily wakes up. As she walks down the stairs, Carlo, who is cooking in the kitchen, wishes her a good morning and informs her that breakfast is ready. She is still yawning and deep in sleep, while he is impressed by her great sense of smell as she feels hungry now. He also recalls when, a few days ago, one fine day he offered her a cake with an amazing taste. As his sister advised him about girls loving cake, he happily suggested she eat it since he baked it that day. However, seeing her sitting there angrily, he found that she did not like the cake. She coldly stood up and told him to eat it himself, stating that a knight did not need treats. He looked gloomily at her back, as he had really wanted her to eat it. And now, as he enters back home, he becomes surprised to see her quickly eating the cake he made yesterday. Feeling embarrassed, she immediately moves back, but with a smile he asks her to continue, feeling happy that he made a full cake yesterday. Nervously, she offers him a piece of the cake she was keeping for herself, but his suggestion for her to eat the whole cake makes her so surprised and happy, as it was her dream to eat it all. Carlo recalls when a few years back, thinking about the beautiful path with beautiful mimosas, he offered her to go for a walk. She coldly agreed, blinking her eyes and stating it was to act as his guard. But on the walk he felt very embarrassed when people got scared by her intense night looks. Looking at her from a distance, he thought about her cold nature despite being such an elegant beauty and having a good atmosphere around her. Sensing his staring, she angrily asked if he wanted to fight her, which he immediately apologized for. While now walking alone in the present, on his admiring the spring, she also happily agrees. Looking at her, he feels happy to see her face looking much more relaxed than before. Suddenly she looks at him. He immediately apologizes, but instead of being angry, she asks with a blushed face whether he was staring. She adds that she has no intention to fight him, which leaves him shocked. Now as he suggests a walk, she simply agrees before he can even complete his sentence. The scene shifts to a few years back. During grocery shopping, Alba walks in front of Carlo like a knight, making everyone around them stare in confusion and even frightening some children. Noticing the attention, Carlo asks her to walk behind him. But before she can respond, a man bumps into Carlo. As he turns around in confusion, he is shocked to see Alba leap into the air and kick the suspicious-looking man in the head. The impact knocks him unconscious instantly. She then retrieves Carlo's wallet, which the man had stolen, and tells him to be careful since pickpockets are everywhere. Although Carlo thanks her and agrees, he realizes that people around them are staring and whispering about her. Worried, he tells her she is overreacting and that it is not necessary to act like a knight over something so small. When she angrily tries to explain herself, he interrupts and suggests she should handle situations like that through conversation or by simply restraining the thief without violence. Seeing her frustrated but silent expression, he finally thanks her properly and praises her for her quick action. This only leaves her more annoyed at his contradictory behavior of first scolding her and then praising her. A year later, during another grocery trip, they go to buy bread. When the shopkeeper happily hands it to Carlo, a man suddenly rushes past them at high speed and snatches the bread, escaping immediately. Carlo is left shocked. While everyone else is surprised, Alba calmly steps in front of the robber, folds her arms, and suggests that he return the bread or face consequences. With no other choice, the robber reluctantly gives it back and runs away. Carlo comes over and apologizes again for his carelessness, while she advises him to be more attentive. Scratching his head nervously, he thanks her for her incredible abilities. Seeing her slightly blushing and smiling, he smiles as well, and they both head home together. Alba, the strongest knight who once defeated the fiercest enemies and amazed other knights with her strength, is now happily enjoying tea with a peaceful smile. Carlo points out more food for her to try, but noticing her slightly gloomy expression as if she is still unsure about her new life, he calmly reassures her that she is doing better. Taking the kettle, he asks if she wants more tea and gently suggests that she take a break from her knightly behavior. But suddenly, the kettle slips from his hands. Alba immediately catches it from the bottom and asks if this is also part of taking a break. Deeply worried, Carlo quickly asks if she is really okay, surprising her. But when he takes her hands and tells her that she is more important to him, she is genuinely shocked. She looks at her palm, realizing it is the first time someone has shown such concern for her. When she says that a burn is nothing compared to a sword wound, he still disagrees, insisting that both are completely different. In the end, she finally agrees to let him bandage her hand while he apologizes for everything. The scene shifts to the past. At night, after Carlo prepares dinner and informs Alba, she only gives him a blank, unreadable look, so he quietly places the food on the table. Closing the door behind him, he exhales in frustration, realizing it has already been a week since she started living with him. Yet he still has no idea how to handle the situation. Sitting in the library with a book in hand, he grows more irritated, thinking back on how he has always lived alone and never had any real experience dealing with women. He recalls the night headquarters where the lady officer asked him to take care of Alba. Sipping his tea, he remembers with annoyance that the officer was Louise, the knight's operations assistant and his former senior in school. After graduation, she would tease him without reason, sometimes dumping odd responsibilities on him, like looking after a stray cat. He had thought becoming her assistant would make her more mature, but instead she had simply assigned him Alba as well, claiming he should teach her the meaning of a happy life. Closing the book, he stands up, deciding to confront her directly and refuse the task. Back at the night headquarters, Louise calmly rejects his request after hearing him out. She scolds him for giving up after only a week, dismissing his concerns and insisting that no one can truly understand another person in such a short time. However, noticing his visibly frustrated expression, she falls silent for a moment. Then she explains that Alba is not just a strong knight, but someone who has only ever known battle and nothing beyond it. Meanwhile, back at Carlo's home, Alba remembers him saying he was going out. Misinterpreting it as a mission to protect the estate, she changes into her clothes and stands at the gate with a cold, watchful gaze. Her intimidating presence terrifies the mailman, who nervously informs her he is only delivering a letter for the house owner. Suspicious at first, she briefly considers whether he might be an assassin, but he quickly corrects himself and hands over the letter. At the headquarters, Louise continues calmly sipping her tea, ignoring Carlo's growing frustration. He suddenly raises his voice, insisting that living with Alba is difficult because she is too beautiful, making everyday life uncomfortable. This only makes Louise smile faintly, further irritating him. Setting her cup down, she casually points out that he is the only person in the world who describes Alba as beautiful, shocking him, and adding that most nobles refer to her as nothing more than a pawn, a damaged dog, or a savage woman due to the prejudice she faces as a female knight. Despite protecting the people, she has never been treated with dignity. Hearing this, Carlo's irritation turns into sympathy. Louise then adds that Alba has never truly been treated as a person before, and she believes Carlo is the one who can finally give her that. As night falls, he leaves holding a gift, still frustrated with how easily he gets pulled into Louise's reasoning. When he returns home, he is shocked to see Alba standing at the gate in full armor. She coldly informs him that she was guarding the perimeter and hands him the letter. Recognizing it as his sister's, he thanks her. Alba quietly feels satisfied, believing she has successfully fulfilled her duty. Noticing her rigid mindset, Carlo sighs, then gently asks if she has eaten dinner. Ignoring her insistence on continuing her watch, he firmly tells her to come inside. In the morning, while thinking about what to prepare for breakfast, Carlo is suddenly shocked to see Alba already doing her 1,500-second single-handed push-up, and still continuing without pause. He greets her a good morning, and she responds in the middle of her exercise without breaking rhythm. Noticing that she is completely drenched in sweat, he quickly averts his gaze and tells her to finish and come down afterward. At the table, although she is eating breakfast, her speed and huge bites immediately worry him. He gently advises her to eat slowly, but she refuses, explaining that taking too long to eat would delay her readiness to face enemies. He reminds her again that there are no enemies here, which only irritates her. Then, as she reaches for the broth, he warns her that it is hot, but she drinks it immediately anyway, only to flinch in pain and set it down. Concerned, he immediately asks if she is all right. She tries to act fine, but he sees through it and steps closer to help her. She instinctively covers her mouth, startled when he reaches toward her face, mistakenly thinking she might be injured. Panicking slightly out of habit from caring for his sister, he quickly tells her to wait while he gets water. Alba sits there, confused, and nervously drinks the water when he returns. Afterward, when she asks about her duties, he calmly tells her to relax. Seeing her bored expression, he thinks for a moment and suggests she try laundry. However, while doing it, her overwhelming strength accidentally tears a dress in half. He smiles warmly, gently reassures her despite her guilt, and then suggests they move on to doing the dishes instead. While washing dishes, she nearly breaks 15 plates and accidentally shatters one completely. A loud crash echoes through the room, and Carlo rushes over immediately, not even looking at the broken pieces, only asking in concern whether she is hurt or cut herself. She stares at him in shock, surprised that he is worried about her instead of the damage. Relieved, he smiles again as she hesitantly explains her experience with cleaning. Later, she is mopping the floor, but Carlo returns to find it completely flooded. Before he can react, he slips and falls heavily to the ground. Seeing the chaos she has caused, Alba looks down at him with deep guilt, blaming herself and silently walking away in shame. Carlo immediately comforts her instead of scolding her, but then notices a shard embedded in her hand. Alarmed, he quickly takes her hand and bandages it. She is stunned that he is not angry, while he simply looks confused, believing that caring for her is only natural. Realizing something, he suddenly runs off and returns with a jar of his favorite jam, asking her to open it. She opens it effortlessly, leaving him genuinely shocked since he had failed earlier. He thanks her sincerely. Seeing that he enjoys the jam, Alba becomes quietly motivated and begins taking initiative to open every jar she can find. Carlo recalls his childhood when his grandfather first showed him the estate. Back then, it served as his grandfather's vacation home. However, he had always warned Carlo to stay away from one particular room, claiming that it was haunted. Back in the present, Carlo is studying in the library. Deciding it is time for a break, he sits back and enjoys a cup of tea. Suddenly, a voice from outside catches his attention. When he steps out, he finds Alba standing on high alert. She reports that someone has entered a room and points toward it. Carlo asks if she means there is another person living in the house besides the two of them. When he confirms that there isn't, Alba immediately assumes it must be an intruder. Before Carlo can react, she marches over and throws the door open. Inside, there is no sign of a person, only a large mirror standing in the middle of the room. Convinced the intruder is hiding somewhere, Alba begins searching every corner. Meanwhile, Carlo suddenly remembers his grandfather's warning about this room. Since he had never wanted to deal with unnecessary trouble, he had always avoided investigating it himself. Looking around now, he notices the dust-covered furniture and becomes confused. There is clearly nobody inside. Half-jokingly, he wonders if the mysterious visitor might have been a ghost. Alba, however, is completely unfazed. Since she is not convinced it is anything supernatural, she continues her search. Carlo jumps slightly when a lamp suddenly falls near the window. Before he can make sense of it, Alba steps in front of the mirror and loudly declares that she will eliminate the intruder the moment she finds them. As Carlo approaches the mirror and looks into it, his imagination runs wild. He pictures a terrifying figure appearing behind them and immediately panics. Then he notices that Alba is no longer beside him, which startles him even more. Looking around, he discovers that she is actually standing outside the room in the corridor, maintaining a defensive stance. Concerned, he asks if she is all right. She silently nods. Smiling, Carlo teasingly asks if she is afraid of ghosts. Alba immediately denies it with an angry expression. Confused by how defensive she is acting, he listens as she insists that she is merely prepared for a sudden attack. In the end, they finally discover the culprit, a cat. Later, remembering that he prefers coffee while Alba likes cocoa, Carlo prepares a cup of cocoa for her. During their conversation, Alba becomes puzzled when he mentions his preference for coffee. Wondering why anyone would enjoy something so bitter, she asks about it. Carlo explains that many people enjoy coffee despite its bitterness. Hearing that only sparks Alba's competitive spirit, and she immediately demands that he serve her a cup as well. As she takes her first sip, her expression quickly reveals that she dislikes it. Carlo offers to let her add sugar, but she instantly refuses, claiming that relying on sugar would be disgraceful for a night. Amused, Carlo tells her to relax. He then adds some sugar and a little milk before handing the cup back to her. This time, after taking a sip, she clearly enjoys the taste. However, he soon watches in disbelief as she proceeds to dump an absurd amount of sugar cubes into the coffee before drinking it with complete satisfaction. Smiling to himself, he concludes that she would probably be better off sticking to cocoa after all. The next morning, recalling how much Alba enjoyed sweet flavors the previous day, Carlo carefully prepares breakfast. As he cooks, he keeps wondering whether she truly likes sweets, eventually filling the table with an assortment of sweet dishes. At the dining table, Alba immediately refuses to eat. Carlo becomes gloomy, as he had expected this reaction. Still, he insists that she at least try a bite. Looking away, she angrily refuses, declaring that a knight cannot eat such things. When he points out that she clearly enjoys sweets, she becomes even more irritated. Standing up with a frightening expression, she plants both hands on the table and demands to know what kind of image he has of her. Concealing the truth about her preference for cocoa over coffee, Carlo calmly explains himself. Though still confused, she eventually nods. Smiling, Carlo tells her not to hold herself back from eating what she likes. Alba stubbornly insists that she is not restraining herself at all. However, the sight of the delicious sweets gradually weakens her resolve. After a moment, she sits back down and agrees to taste just one bite. Carlo happily encourages her to choose whatever she wants. She picks up a donut and takes a bite while Carlo watches expectantly. When she remains silent, he nervously asks how it tastes. Alba stares at the donut, then at the other desserts on the table, before quietly admitting that it is good. Relieved, Carlo relaxes. Before long, however, he finds himself teasing her after she finishes every dessert on the table despite originally promising to take only one bite, while Alba remains thoroughly impressed by the sweets. Later, Alba dreams about her training days. She recalls being taught to always be punctual, maintain a strict workout routine, and stay alert at all times as a knight. Suddenly waking up in her comfortable bed, she is shocked to realize that morning has already arrived. It is the first time she has slept so deeply in years. Meanwhile, Carlo watches her train non-stop as usual. Earlier that morning, he had been surprised when she opened her door, refused breakfast, declared that she would handle all the household chores herself, and then immediately ran out into the garden. Now he watches her practice with growing concern. After returning inside, Alba collapses onto her bed in exhaustion. Having trained without eating or drinking anything, her stomach growls loudly. Sleepy, hungry, and frustrated, she lies there staring at the ceiling. Confused by her own condition, she begins blaming Carlo for it. In her mind, all the care he has shown her has made her lazy. She has never slept this long before, and she convinces herself that all these comforts are weakening her resolve as a knight. 2 hours pass as she struggles with these thoughts. Despite intending to continue her training, her hunger keeps her awake. Eventually, exhaustion wins, and she falls asleep again. The next morning, Carlo knocks on her door and asks if she is awake. He informs her that he left breakfast outside. With her stomach growling loudly, Alba has no choice but to accept his kindness. She quietly thanks him, eats the meal, and promptly falls asleep once more. That night, Alba reflects on everything Carlo has done for her, serving her coffee, preparing sweet breakfasts, and allowing her complete freedom. Growing increasingly troubled, she decides that staying here is making her soft. Determined, she writes a letter. Leaving it behind, she steps onto the balcony and leaps into the night beneath the moonlight. The next morning, he immediately notices something is wrong. Looking out the window, he realizes Alba is not outside training as usual. He remembers their recent arguments, especially how she yelled at him for fussing over her and told him not to take care of her anymore. Wondering if she is still angry, he nevertheless expects her to appear for breakfast. When she doesn't, he knocks on her door. Receiving no answer, he enters and freezes. The room is empty. His eyes fall on the letter resting on the table. Reading it leaves him visibly gloomy. In the letter, Alba thanks him for everything he has done and asks him to inform Louise that she left of her own accord. She explains that staying there was making her weak and that she intends to live independently. Seeing the open balcony door, Carlo quickly realizes what happened. Alba has run away. Meanwhile, Alba walks through a crowded marketplace. A shopkeeper calls out to her, referring to her as a pretty lady. Since she ignores him, he follows after her to get her attention. Confused, she glances back and asks if he was talking to her. When he cheerfully confirms it, she glares at him and angrily accuses him of disrespecting her as a knight. The shopkeeper simply laughs and says that calling her pretty is just stating a fact. He even offers her bread at a discount. Although she stubbornly refuses at first, her stomach growls loudly. Having skipped breakfast, she ultimately gives in and buys the bread. While eating as she walks, she passes two women doing laundry. One of them panics after spotting a bug, while the other warns her that there are many insects in the area. Before either woman can react, Alba instantly kicks the bug into a nearby stone slab, shattering the slab on impact. The force also injures her hand. The women stare in disbelief and ask who she is. Alba calmly introduces herself as a knight and tells them there is no need to thank her. As evening falls, she settles beneath a tree with her bag of bread. Nearby, a young couple sits on a bench. She watches as the boy apologizes to the girl and carefully bandages her injured hand. The sight immediately reminds her of Carlo treating her burns and injuries. Looking down at her own injured hand, she grows gloomy and convinces herself that his kindness has only made her weak. At that moment, three armed travelers approach her. Calling her a pretty lady, they ask for directions. Alba responds with a confused but intimidating stare. Back at the mansion, Carlo struggles with whether he should search for her. He knows Alba would probably be furious if she found out he was worrying about her. He recalls how he always preferred being alone, even when others mocked him as a bookworm. Solitude had always been comfortable for him. Yet Alba's arrival changed everything. She made him care about things he had never cared about before. Even so, he reasons that searching for her immediately might only cause her trouble. Hoping she will return on her own, he decides to spend the evening reading one of his long novels. But while sipping tea, he finds himself unable to focus. As the sun continues to set and Alba still hasn't returned, his anxiety steadily grows. Eventually, he gets up and decides to make coffee for dinner. Since he is alone, there is no need to prepare anything else. Even while brewing it, his thoughts remain fixed on Alba. He keeps wondering whether she is safe. Then he reminds himself that, as a knight, she would probably be angry if she knew he was worrying about her. Yet memories continue flooding his mind. Her preference for cocoa, her burned mouth, and her reaction to the donuts. Lost in thought, he absent-mindedly pours sugar into his coffee. Then he suddenly stops. Setting the spoon down, he leaves the kitchen, grabs his coat, and heads out the door. He has finally decided to go look for her.